joined by Sachin Relekar. He's a senior equity fund manager at Axis AMC. Sachin, thank you so much for talking to us. Today, we want to talk about the equity outlook. So, before looking ahead, I want to look a little bit in the rear view mirror. Can you tell me what the biggest equity trends have been in 2025?
I think the most prominent equity trend in 2025 was the AI and investment related to that. I think most of the flows have actually been oriented based on that. India is one of the negative recipient of that. It has been seen as an anti-AI trade. While in the global markets, if you see, even the markets have performed in a concentrated pockets, it's only about AI and technologies and investment around that. I think that is the major highlight. Coming domestically, I think the markets have been very, very range bound. It has not like broken out on the either side, and therefore the returns are also muted. So I think that this way, if you look at, it's very, very difficult year. From a domestic equity point of view, but a lot has happened globally, and perhaps internals are quite interesting that way. So that's actually the highlight being AI and what has happened around that.
Okay, fantastic. Looking ahead, what is your equity outlook for the next year for 2026?
I think domestically the outlook is improving. We had seen fiscal tightening, which was quite high, 25 or 24 ending. Now it is actually improving. Also, the monetary tightening has now reduced. In fact, it has become much more supportive. I think that will help the growth outlook. And if the growth outlooks also start coming through, I think the FII flows also will actually get oriented towards that. And so I think that way we are quite constructive from CY26 outlook point of view. Sector wise, we continue to remain liking industrials or investment as a theme more over consumption, and that is something is a preference. I think financials are expected to do well because most of the incremental earnings also will get added by the financial sector itself. Given that the interest rates are so low, I think that's very obvious conclusion over there.
And from a retail investor point of view, looking ahead, you did mention some of the sectors, but how should they be approaching the next year with regards to their equity investments? Any piece of advice that you could give to our viewers?
Yeah, so I think we are off from a very soft year from an equity returns point of view. So the valuations are benign now. I think they're quite supportive. As I said, the macros are quite supportive. Therefore, I think there is much more optimism from the equity point of view. And I think that should, at least from a 1 year, is not a right way to look at from a equity investment point of view. But given that the backdrop has been supportive of the outlook, I think equity should be a preferred asset class. And I'd like to caution on certain trends where the valuations are very high, especially in precious metal, etc. One should look at it more from an asset allocation, not just as a only asset class. I mean, there you can think about what should be the composition of that asset into your portfolio rather than only focusing on that, because that has a very separate characteristic. So have a balanced approach to asset allocation. Equity obviously has underperformed, but there are internals which are suggestive that things should actually start looking up. And things which are very, very bright in the recent past, there one should really exercise some caution.
Mhm. One last thing, Sachin. So, the global headwinds, there's a lot of conversations around Trump, tariffs, etc., etc. How much should retail investors keep this in mind, pay attention to it, or just rather just focus on their investing plan as per their advisors'
My
advice?
so my advice is actually for a retail investor and individual investor, he should focus on the asset allocation. There are two aspects to determine that asset allocation: your risk-taking ability and your risk appetite. Focus on that. I think that will drive the optimal outcomes. There are noises which will find around for keep happening around, but I don't think things are not going to deteriorate so sharply also. Yes, geopolitics and the noise around that is going to create a lot of uncertainty, but I think those are the things which have been not new. We had seen it in the last 10 years also, or perhaps in 15 years also. There are something or other just keeps on happening, but anybody who has been remained disciplined about the asset allocation, I think has had seen the outcomes to be much more satisfactory than somebody who has paid attention to the noise around that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Sachin, thank you so much for talking to us today and for sharing your view ahead on the equity outlook for 2026. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
वैसे रिस्क